On March 31st, analysts were expecting the S&P 500 to post about a 14.5% year-on-year gain in first quarter earnings. Now that estimate is 15.5. So there's already a lot of optimism being built into earnings reports for this first quarter, and second quarter is expected to be up more than 50%. So I believe the bar is set pretty high, and so as a result, it could end up being a tailwind if we don't get even improved earnings from here. I think he was speaking in a sense out of both sides of his mouth. On the one side, he was saying that we're going to leave interest rates alone until 2023, which is the current projection. But at the same time, he was acknowledging that the economy is growing quite rapidly, and he expects the growth trajectory to be pretty high. Obviously, the caveat is whether we have an additional wave of COVID that could slow things down. But I think he was even sort of floating a trial balloon to see how the markets would respond to his acknowledging that economic growth expectations are likely to improve.
The Fed is acknowledging that it believes we are going to see a temporary spike in inflation in the second quarter because the year-on-year comparisons are going to be so easy. We're looking for GDP growth of about 8.5%, looking for inflation numbers to come in at about 3.5% on headline CPI, but then likely to temper as we move into the second half of 2021. The real worry would be if wages start to pick up dramatically, because wage inflation is the biggest component of inflation measures and is also not likely to be temporary. So I would say that if we have a year-on-year spike in inflation, that could go away. But if it's tied to the payroll numbers and wages, that could end up being a concern. Well, I think the problem was so big mainly because of the supply chain disruptions, not only in terms of the people not being able to go to the factories, but also having the customs situation slow down the delivery of these chips, et cetera. And so I think it is a concern, but I equate it to agriculture. If there's a shortage of corn or wheat one year, they overplant the next year, and then you have more than enough in the future. So I think that from a semiconductor perspective, this is likely to be a short-term problem. I think that the auto manufacturers are working around it. The semiconductor manufacturers, they are working at full tilt, et cetera. So I believe it is something that is likely to be short term.